Hello and welcome to our 60th Help Save Our World Speak online speakers meeting, where we are changing the conversation to change our world. I'm Dennis, the teacher of this quest for the truth, change and transformation. Our world is dying. All life on planet Earth is racing towards extreme suffering and inevitable extinction because of our civilized way of life. We have been lied to. Our only hope of survival is to find the truth, learn from it, and then to live by what we intuitively know to be right. This transition is your only hope of survival. It's your and the rest of humanity's only way to turn it all around and help save our world. Going on your quest for the truth, change and transformation, you'll change your way of life and change the world that you manifest around you. This Help Save Our World transition movement is your and the people's of the world's life-saving movement to bring fundamental change to our world. This non-violent transition movement is the only way to ensure you and all life survive and thrive and live sustainably into the future. And it all begins with you, me, and the rest of humanity taking responsibility for our lives and making the necessary changes. Going on your quest for the truth and natural wisdom that you need to survive extinction. Then sowing and growing your happy, healthy, and sustainable future. These meetings take you on a quest for the truth to change your life so that you can live the best version of yourself, so you can transition to that future. This thought journey is also your self-discovery journey and self-transformational journey from the old unsustainable way of thinking and living in the world to the new sustainable way of living your life. It is a powerful journey of self-healing and world healing. It reveals the secret truth about our world and how to change your life to make a meaningful difference in our world. Your quest will answer many of life's most important questions and how to live your best life. The journey will ultimately empower you with the knowledge, the skills, and the wisdom which you need to think and choose wisely. So you'll change your way of life and naturally change the world that you manifest around you. Then, leading from the front, you will guide, teach, and lead others to a happy, healthy, and sustainable way of life, which will ultimately spread around the world. So together we can help save our world and all life on Mother Earth. Let's begin with introductions. Alex, can you introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Alex. I'm here in South Africa and I'm helping provide a platform to allow people to learn how to live sustainably on the land, to encourage people to transition to living sustainably on the land.
Thank you so much, Alex. Brendan?
Hi guys, I'm Brendan. I'm also from South Africa. Basically, I do permaculture as my company, and we try and teach people how to grow fruits and vegetables and forests and all that in order to help sustain them in the distant future.
Excellent. Thank you, Brendan. Kurt?
Hey, I'm Kurt. I'm in Hollywood, Florida these days. And one of the things I do is go on thought journeys every Sunday morning in order to continue the conversation with myself and others as to how can we create a world that works for everybody, including the globe that we live on.
Thank you so much, Kurt. So this step that we're on is taking quite a bit of time because there's so much to it. It is chapter Violet, which is the sort of penultimate chapter, and it is the transition continued. While editing last week's video, it just kept on sort of reoccurring in my mind, because Kurt has been bringing us up quite a lot. I was thinking about what you brought up last week, Kurt, and you mentioned that you had been toying with the idea recently that seeking comfort and giving away our responsibility and control for our lives to others were some of the causes of our problems. Can you please explain or elaborate?
I think so. Yeah, I find that this concept of comfort permeates a lot of where certainly civilization is now in the 21st century as we record it, but probably has gone back to even the early days of tribalness and even just families. And it comes to the point that my take is that we've created groups and tribes and teams and governments and city states and all of that stuff in order to help us live a more comfortable life than we could have if we we're just on our own, and every day finding our food and finding our shelter and fighting off whatever threats to our existence were. So that two people join together to make work faster, more effective, easier, whatever it might be, leads to more comfort. We have more hours in the day or even minutes in the day, depending, to allow ourselves to think and just experience life without having to constantly be worried about survival. I guess I'll just put it that way. And that's the extreme end of it. So civilization and groups and collaboration and teams can lead us towards thrival, which is where I think sustainability is going. We're going to thrive and also maintain the resources that we have so that we're not moving towards extinction of all that is just to make our lives easier. So going back, well, I can't go back more than my life, I guess, other than historically. But if we look at what's happened with any kind of groups is eventually somebody or a group of somebodies gathers together and starts to harness the power. Maybe they can do something better or they learn things faster or whatever it might be. And they become into a position of leadership, let's say. And because of that, they tend to take more authority. They assume position and power that hasn't been given them. And then they start to dominate and control. I'm not saying this is every single instance, but I think if we look at the course of civilization, we could just see many, many examples of it, including the past 4 years in the United States and even the past year, 2020, in the world, where outside forces, meaning outside of us, are influencing us, forcing us, mandating us to behave in a certain way, with the concept that this is for our own good. Certainly the pyramid schemes that you talk about many times, Dennis, are an example of that. So as we look at certainly technology, when it becomes more and more advanced, we can certainly look at the 20th century with radio and television and telephone and all kinds of communications, and certainly the internet. It's allowed us way more comfort than we normally would ever have. Certainly 2020 saw the advent of food delivery more than it ever has in the world. So we don't even go out into our garden and pick the food. We just click on things on the internet, and in a day or two, it's delivered to our door by a third party. So this concept of comfort, I think it's something that human beings seek. Again, it allows us to possibly have a different spiritual experience or even an existential experience than if we're constantly looking to protect ourselves. So given with that comfort, then comes our relinquishing of our own personal autonomy and even responsibility, whether it be for the means of food or shelter, or even self-actualization. It's all coming from the outside in, rather than being who we are and allowing us to access the important things, the growing things of life. So certainly the past, I'm going to say 30, 40, maybe 50 years, when the concept of the age of Aquarius and shifting into the new age of possibility and spirituality, humanity has started, and again, I'm speaking just for my experience on this planet, not for the many periods behind us, but humanity is starting to become more aware of the spiritual aspect of existence, and that may be forced by end of times conversations, or the rapture, or whatever else has been prognosticated into the 20th and 21st century. But again, I think this concept of comfort has kept us from actually doing the work that we really need to do in order to get the experience that we want to experience. And I'm generalizing here, and of course, this is my perspective, but I think we can all see where we've allowed things to fall off and become less important because somebody else can do it. I don't need to write a good term paper and learn English and spelling and handwriting, because I can type it in, and then many programs will produce the term paper that I needed to produce. So that's my perspective on it. It's just that comfort has in many ways not only allowed but forced us, because we don't know the force of comfort, but it's forced us again to become less than fully responsible for our lives. And that was a point I was looking to make, and I think we can see it across the board. And anything that makes life easier has a price. We often don't pay attention to what that price is until we've already given up everything. Even having this ability with this technology to speak across the ocean instantaneously comes with a price of lack of privacy and data collection by companies that provide these services, and even data collection that we're not even aware of, but we're pretty clear does go on. So those are the prices, and I think privacy and autonomy and my ability and desire to live without constant influence by outside forces, I think that's something that humans can appreciate. I don't particularly want to be, I guess, part of an artificial intelligence or a hybrid of human and machine. It's not particularly the direction I want to go. Will it make me stronger and faster and more able to do somebody else's bidding? Probably. But it will also come with my relinquishing my humanity and the unquantifiable aspects of being human and being a spirit in this world rather than being a machine in this world. So I'll leave it there. I think I've given you enough examples to get an idea of where I see it impacting and where it possibly came from. And I offer and invite you to look at where have you become lazy because something can do it for you, and has that helped you or taken away from you? And I think we'll always find that there are prices and payoffs in our decisions, especially when we invite technology, whether it be the wheel or the sword or the gun or the internet, where we're paying for what it is that we're receiving.
Yeah, that's brilliant. There's so many aspects to what you brought in there. So for me to actually deal with every single one of them would require a major sort of 6 weeks of talking about it. But it's brilliant. Oh yes, well, that's the one point I wanted to bring up. The one point is that, the illusion that it's easier for us to work and get a job and make the money and pay for the technology and do whatever than it is to actually live on a fully grown, sustainable eco-village system is actually a nonsense, because in a fully established you've got water security, you've got food security, you've got everything you need, you've got all the comforts, and your food is right there and it's the freshest it can be. All you have to do is pick and eat it. It's like ultimately the number of hours and the number of the commitment to sort of sustaining it once it's established is very, very little compared to the amount of hours and the amount that we give up to have this technology and to live without moving and to live without sort of all of the connections, the spiritual connections you're saying, and all of the great energy and the exercise and the rest and the magic of being in nature. It's like that's what we have compromised. We've given away our quality of life for an illusion of quality of life. Because really, I mean, I sit here in this chair every day and I write these speeches and everything, but the circulation in my feet is becoming a problem and I'm starting to get swollen feet. And the only way to repair that is for me to get up off the chair and to go for a walk. So it's really, we've given up living for existing. And is that making it easier for us or is it destroying us? It's ultimately, that's, I think, the big question. Living in communities as well with a tribe does increase your safety, your security, and so on. But of course, you can't deal with huge marauding gangs, and you can't deal with dropping of bombs and drones and all that sort of thing. As we can see with the Afghanistan people, they eventually started to live underground to keep them safe from attacks from the US. And then, of course, the US drops it's called the mother of all bombs, down into their underground tunnels and blows them all to smithereens. And also things like, just going down that thought journey is like all of the tribal leaders get together to come up with a plan to, for everything they've got to do into the future. And the US bombs all of the elders. Such a destruction of knowledge and wisdom and so on. You just, basically, I think our dependence is being forced upon us by destroying the eco-village, by taking us away from nature, making us dependent, and then giving us these comforts. Oh, you can have free food, in a squatter camp. We supply foreign aid. Here's an easy way out. You don't even have to grow your food. We'll give it to you. And then the progression into slavery, and we are, as later generations, we're unaware of the process that was put in place to make this happen. And so this reminds me, so hedonism or the pleasure principle could be one of our problems. Still, whatever the reasons were, we have been hiding from and avoiding the truth, avoiding taking responsibility and dealing with it. Now, seeing this situation and the situation over time, it just reminds me of the Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky, it's a difficult name to say, where he talks about how in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the farmers were on the land, and of course the manufacturers needed laborers to produce all of their products. So what they'd do is they'd pay the farmers quite well, and the farmers would come in and work in the factories. And then, of course, the farmers, like, why stay in the factory if you've got enough money, would return to the land. But slowly but surely that changed, and the farmers would, have girlfriends in the city, and then they'd have children, and they would settle down in the cities. And there was this whole thing of bells and whistles and education systems and so on to condition the psyche of the farmers and then their children and their children's children. And eventually having a job in the city was just the accepted norm. And then you could buy all of these products from the Industrial Revolution. So it was a seduction and a conniving mechanism to get people to accept this whole idea of capitalism and labor and so on. So it was by design to a large degree. And it's an incredible book to read. So yeah, I suggest anyone should read that. Although we might now see the world from our perspective, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain is not the only, of course, the only human reasons for making those choices. Humans' initial motivation for the choices they made that determined their future life's direction might have been traumatic events or experiences like, for example, warring and bombing and slashing and burning and chopping down their huts and destroying their communities. And then, of course, fear of imminent death. So they were all herded off into squatter camps or refugee camps, or a genuine fear of scarcity at the concept there of being out in the desert and Noah saying, okay, if you want food and water, you have to believe in my power-based system. Thirst, hunger, and the ability to feed their children. So they were like coerced and forced into this acceptance of this paradigm, or even their unknowing ignorance to their conditioning, indoctrination, and distraction. I'm thinking of education systems and movies and media, and they really don't realize that they are being conditioned into accepting that paradigm. Then avoiding confrontation and pain or suffering. You know, often it's easier not to stand up for anything and just to go with the flow of whatever the problem is. Avoiding the societal disciplinary systems like the military, the policing, the courts, the laws, and being exiled or peer group pressure. These are all like factors that are like influencing us to make these decisions. Even worse, all these behaviors and thoughts are institutionalized and given longevity, so they don't change. And of course, when something is institutionalized, it's like I think of the war and the red tape. It's like impossible almost to get an institution to change its direction. It's just like it's marauding on, and that's the way it is. You've got to get an education. You've got to get a good job. You know, blah, 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 blah. It's like this conditioned program that we're programmed to do. Whatever the reasons, citizens have given up on themselves and our world by not living responsible, clean, healthy, happy, and sustainable lives on our planet as one with nature and life. Whatever their reasons are or might have been, it has all come to a head, and it is unacceptable now because we are paying the ultimate price for these choices and behaviors. And of course, the ultimate price is death, suffering, death, and extinction. It is now time to wake up, grow up, and take responsibility for our lives. You know, life happens in the living. You know, it's like, if you're not living, like growing your own food and walking and talking and, you know, taking the dog for a walk, you're not physically living in this world. You're just living an abstract life in your head. Throughout history, the people have allowed the goose that lays the golden egg to be taken, stolen from them, or often killed for short-term money, comfort, protectionism, or the illusion of it. No matter what we are promised by those in power, with or without good intent, the systems of power that rule over us do not always have our best intentions in mind. The causes of the world's problems are in the design of the system. They are systemic problems. So the only way to fix those problems is to transition away from the unsustainable, irresponsible way of life to a sustainable and responsible way of life. We have been giving away our responsibility for our world to the irresponsible businesses, governments, corporations, owners, bankers, who use distractions like emotional issues, media conversations, misdirection, news, fake news, movies, big games or national, international sport, all forms of distraction. So we actually aren't dealing with reality and dealing with life and living it. To distract us from our awareness of the need to change, what needs to change. How do we need to change it? How do we take back our thoughts and conversations? How do you become more in tune with yourself and your environment? There are many aspects to your transformational process. It is your quest for the truth, your thought, your life-altering journey to self and world transformation. It's a process where you look at all aspects of your life and reevaluate them. Things like your use of language is so important. You know, in a certain paradigm, they use a certain type of language. It's like often in pyramid schemes, they use absolutist type language, you know, black and white, heaven and hell, illegal aliens, blah, blah. It's like all of this like extreme segregation within the actual language. So using like really good sort of loving, kind language can be the nature of your communication within your culture. Then there's things like, instead of like going back to the beginning of this quest, because that's what what will happen here if I carry on with this, it's like living your life with cleanliness, with a good diet, safety, security, non-violence. You know, these are like the many different things, dealing with your language, your emotions, your feelings, your physical health, you know, everything that are the habits that you have created in your life to become the person that you're living now needs to be reevaluated and changed so that you create all of these new different ways of being, all these new habits, and become this totally different person who's physically living in our world. Anyone want to comment? Alex?
No, other than I fully agree. I don't really have a comment. I mean, yeah.
Right, so Kurt, do you want to respond?
Well, that's actually a good segue, in that I agree 100%. So we're in alignment with what has been said, I'm going to say over the past 20, 25 minutes. And yet, and still, and always, what are we going to do about it? Where do we apply that alignment and that understanding and agreement such that it makes a difference? And I'm just going to put out, as we all get to every day, a call for put something in action. And I'm not saying that the folks on this call don't. I think that's one of the great aspects of us here, is that each of us in our own way are doing something to be the change that we're looking to have. There were so many of the points that you made, Dennis, that all fall into that. I think final comment that you're taking is that we've given away our responsibility to the irresponsible. I think that's just such a perfect line for what comfort and historically, since whenever human beings developed as we are, have been doing, is that people are more than willing to take on power and control and domination and all that kind of stuff and give you back the illusion that they'll take care of you. And we know that there really is no security. There's no security. We're all going to get out of this life dead. So don't let anybody tell you that it's going to be any different. What comes after? Definitely, it could be your own decision rather than somebody telling you. If you live this way, I guarantee you'll get into the gates of heaven with nothing other than just take that on faith, because God told me. And of course, I'm just picking on religion here, but you can apply that to absolutely every pyramid and silo that exists out there. And that's what we're doing. So the goodness of people, in that we are willing to accept and believe in and trust another, to the point where that is our greatest fault as well. So again, I'll just repeat the line. We give away our responsibility to the irresponsible, and it's exactly what we're going to get from them. There's irresponsible responses.
Exactly. There's consequences for the irresponsible, for giving away our responsibility to the irresponsible. You know, it's like, ultimately we are paying the price for their destructive and negative behaviors. And, you know, why give those people your power? Why not take the power and just, and become like, empower your tribe and nature around you to create the most amazing sort of spiritual, earthly living life experience. Because ultimately, I think we came to this world to live our lives, did we not?
Hmm. And to experience and then process that experience and then turn it into a belief or an idea and then practice it and then live out of it. Yeah, I think, and you've mentioned it many times throughout this series as well, that we've all been, as Don Miguel Ruiz said in the Four Agreements, we've all been domesticated since birth. And the domestication has been refining itself over the many centuries before we entered the planet. So we're living into an already existing conversation that still has all the remnants of, if you want to live a good life, pay attention, be aware, and be responsible. It still is always available to us, but the manipulations to convince us otherwise and entice us otherwise, and even indoctrinate us otherwise, are so much stronger than they were when we were a small community, where somebody could call each other out and say, hey, don't do that to that kid, or don't teach them that, or, you know, don't play games with somebody that could cost them their life, you know, the next time something happens. We just kind of allow things to go on that way. And many of our guiding principles, which have come even over the years, certainly the 10 Commandments are not a bad you know, set of beliefs, or the Eightfold Path, or you know, the Four Agreements, or, you know, whatever. But ultimately they get manipulated and thrown at us in a different way. So we just get to be aware, and being aware is that responsibility. And we're as much responsible for giving away our responsibility to the irresponsible than they are for destroying. And then, you know, well, yeah, the destroying what that responsibility could really mean and create. So that whole training, and I know we've talked about it many times, we need to start to educate people on how to think, not in what to think. And if we can change the educational system to do that, then maybe we'll start to see more and more people take ownership for their life and the world that they live in, rather than, I'm just here, I don't know why, but sure, tell me. I'll come every Sunday, you tell me, and I'll live the rest of the 7 days believing it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm picking on religion. It could be anything, though. It doesn't have to be religion. It could be the the man on TV.
You know, the interesting thing is that the fundamental design of the paradigm does begin with our religion. So it's like, unfortunately, that's the way it is. The actual structure of pyramid schemes started in ancient Egypt and then became the foundation of our dominant religion. So it's like, and then that has been like the core, which has spread that out throughout history across the planet. So there is a lot of accountability to be sort of directed towards like the original teachings, and, you know, where they come from and what their purpose is. And it's not about hurting people or whatever, because ultimately this is about trying to get the people of the world to see the truth and to change their way of thinking to a more sustainable way of life. So I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm here just to reveal, you know, what's going on in the world. So
sure. No, I agree. Things were put in place, I would say, for a valid reason originally. And over whatever period of time, they morphed into other things. So that, you know, if you look at like the Crusades, just for an example, since we're talking religion, and maybe they had a good idea with Christianity and how you could have a population lead a clean life if you all believe the same thing. But then to go out and kill everybody that didn't believe the same thing because you want to maintain your isolated world, it just morphed into, and again, it has to do with greed, with ego, with taking on all of the negative beingnesses that they preach against. So avarice and greed and sloth and gluttony and all the things that, hey, if you don't want to do that, then stop doing it on other people.
That's
Again,
an
religion
interesting,
is just one of the things. Go ahead.
that's an interesting concept. That's sort of like the duality of the belief systems, the older Old Testament or whatever, the older Torah, or like the ancient Egyptian pyramid scheme set of values, all right, which came through. That is one set of beliefs, which is really just go and plunder and take and whatever. But it was at the time of the origins of Moses and so on. I mean, those people were desperate. They were out in the middle of a desert, fear of scarcity, terrified, not knowing whether they're going to survive. And in that situation, choices like that could have been the reason that they did survive. So yes, fine. But it is a paradigm that, if imposed on the whole world, is an absolute disaster. And then you have the other belief system, which is saying, oh my gosh, it's not about power and greed and whatever. It's about love and compassion and caring and sharing and love thy neighbor and all of those. So now you have two diametrically opposed belief systems all incorporated into one belief system. So what happens is you have people saying, oh, well, let's go and teach this good stuff. Oh, sorry, the good stuff. And then, unfortunately, they carry the baggage of the bad stuff. And it is this destructive principle. So if there were some way of like separating and taking away taking away the whole pyramid scheme thing, all right, and then just living by love and what you sow you shall reap and whatever, is pretty much what we are teaching. Then we would have an amazing future, all right? But we have to move away from the old destructive belief system into a loving, kind, considerate, compassionate worldview, a love-based philosophy. And, I'm not, in what I'm saying with my hands, I'm not actually promoting religion at all, because, once you step into the combination of both those philosophies, and you've basically harmed you will from that point onwards harm the world around you. It's just like, because it is one philosophy now. So it's an interesting thing that was done by the Romans, or Emperor Constantine and his scribes in about 300 AD, putting it together.
Well, yeah, I think it's happened across the world, though. Yeah, it's just I'm not going to say it's just an artifact of that kind of structure, but maybe it is. I just wanted to add one thing to you, because I think one of the religions, or one of the aspects of religion that we is the aspect of trust, and give your responsibility or whatever to God or Jesus or Buddha or not Buddha, whatever it might be. And the phrase came up, trust with verification, not with suspicion. And I think what happens is, those of us that want to trust, we believe in trust, we believe in stepping into the world trustful, doesn't mean we step into it with our eyes closed. So I trust it, and still I'm going to check out that it is what I think it is, versus I'm not so sure I trust it, and it's a very different approach to it. And I think we've been conditioned over centuries, and civilizations have, that it's hard to give trust anymore, because we've been burned so many times. And it was as simple in the past 4 years as an American politician saying, what do you got to lose? Trust me, the system you got sucks. And people just said, yeah, here, take it, go ahead. And in the past couple of weeks, people have been saying, but I was told to do this by that guy, and he forsook me. He left me hanging. He renounced that he had anything to do with me. Now, that's just one example, but the manipulation continues everywhere. Nuclear power, coal plants, GMO foods, the banking system, no matter what, they all do on that. Trust us, we got your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, if we trust with verification, then we become, the whistleblowers and the naysayers. I'm not quite sure I believe in that. Show me more evidence. I want to trust you, and I want to see what evidence there is to back up what you said. So I think humanity gets to continue with that trust with verification and stop being lazy.
Yeah, so it really sort of is having this analytical mind and basically willing to go and do the research and the hard work. But there's this statement, the truth will set you free. And it comes down to that. We're on a quest for the truth. Why? Because within knowing the truth, that's where our freedom lies. That's where our transition to a better way of life and so on. But you have to be willing to step up and analyze and rethink and just don't just accept. You cannot be naive, Nobody's doing anything they do for your interests. They're doing it for themselves. So if you wanted things to go your way, well, you're going to have to step up and be a man or be responsible for your life. And then I think the other thing that you brought up was holding other people accountable. And if we have enough time, I don't know, we've still got about 12 minutes. So maybe I can go into another section of a story really about why I left America. Do you mind? Good, thanks. So living in America for 17 years, I felt myself getting sicker and sicker every time I compromised my values and beliefs just to survive. Although I never gave up on what I believed and spoke out to just about everyone I met, and I gave many, many speeches at Toastmasters and at other places, spreading the word about what I had discovered. Being authentic by living the truth was not easy, especially in this compromised society. I tried many different ways of earning a living to survive. However, I gave them up as soon as I felt like I couldn't continue the lies. I never allowed myself to be just caught up in the money trap. Always keeping my feet on the ground, I was living in the real world. So I was continually reminded of what it feels like to live on the edge and feel genuine empathy for others in need. So I made enough money to live for a while, and then I stopped working until I needed to work again, just like the farmers back then. Only taking what I needed is one of my life's guiding principles. At some stage, I chose to give up my yacht repair businesses, and there were various different times where I started that up and then dumped it, where I was working for the rich and famous, and of course I was making lots of money. I gave up being a captain and worked as a mate on yachts when I could no longer live with my conscience. During my no work times, I protested on the streets for years. I wrote blogs and books, always standing up for what I believed to be true and right. When I had extra money, I gave what I could to the poor and the homeless. I always stood up for the weak, poor, and defenseless. I helped, taught, and saved many others' lives whenever I was asked if I could help. I was continuously searching, researching, and experiencing while on my quest for the truth, change, and transformation, constantly questioning, thinking, and analyzing the situations I lived through to find the lessons and the wisdom within. I must say, I made many mistakes along the way, but I learned a lot and changed a lot. Then for the last 18 months of living in America, I chose to drive my car as an Uber driver to reach out and teach others in America that our world is in extreme trouble because of our way of life. We all urgently need to take responsibility, change, and transition to an equitable, love-based future world. The sickness of the society is so pervasive in America. It is everywhere all the time. eventually I was so sick with stress and fear for my own life that I gave up my life in America because it was making me so ill. My cancer was spreading on my arm, my skin cancer. Living in a land of consumption, pollution, capitalism, lies, propaganda, racism, segregation, hatred, elitism, and all of the negative values and beliefs of a sick, conservative, religious ownership society. So I gave most of my possessions away, sold my car, and moved back to South Africa to live with my daughter, Alex, and grandson, Rowan, to help them to reconnect and regrow our family relationships, because relationships are far more important than money or what you can buy, own, or consume. All right, it's open to the floor. Anyone want to comment?
Good morning.
Morning, how are you, Lorna?
I'm fine, thank you. First, happy day of friendship and union. Yes, I was a witness, what you just said when you were living here, and I really admire you for that and keep admiring you for that, respecting you for that. And about comfort and avoid responsibility, yes, we all are, yes, I agree, responsible for ourselves first, and then whoever and whatever is implicated, right? And that was so important to check at the end of the day, going to bed, at least for me, I say, how did I do today? What things I want to keep and what things I try again. I'll try again. But it boils down, yes, to not the outside world, because it's out of my hands, really. But when I keep myself in check as much as I can, of course, I'm human, I get a better chance, to contribute, to co-create with whatever is happening around me. So yes, and about the people, companies, or people that are out there that have a different vision about what is being here, I guess they maybe this time around, it's not their match, to really being awake and be part of, what's important for the majority of people. But that's something I kind of make a peace with it, not to start doing something about it, because, just being here, it's just do something about it. But maybe it's not their match right now or in this lifetime. And hopefully that they'll catch up in the future. That's the closest I can think of the subject today.
That's awesome stuff. I love the idea of checking yourself at the end of the day, and say, okay, well, what do I achieve today? I think that's an incredible idea. And unfortunately, we don't have time to wait for the irresponsible to become responsible. It's up to us to lead the way to a better future, and to show them and teach them that there is an alternative, and that their way is not working for us. Because if we the people do not step up, they will kill us, they will destroy us. And that's what they're doing. They if it's like just all about corporate greed and CEOs trying to make the best returns for their investors, and owners wanting more and more money, ultimately that is killing our world. And it's time for us to hold them accountable. It's time for us to say, okay, guys, enough's enough. No more lies, no more nonsense. Let's just stop yourself every day and reevaluate what you did today. Right, Kurt?
Yeah, I was just thinking on that. What will it take for people to wake up? We've been at the 2 minutes to midnight for a couple of years now, as far as the tipping point of climate is happening. We're right there. When we see that just a couple of percent of citizens own the majority of wealth in this country and the world for that matter, at what point do we go, oh yeah, things aren't working? So I don't know what it's going to take, as again, we get to be responsible for ourselves and to stop letting other people tell us what is, unless they're willing to give me realistic data and open their books and be transparent, which is really what people have been asking for a long time. Be transparent with the workings of the government. Let us know what you're doing. But they don't want to, because people don't want to relinquish power or wealth or domination. So as best we can, as Lorna was saying, I check in every day and say, did I live up to who I believe I am and could be? And in the morning we wake up, we go, okay, who am I going to be today? And if people would just stop and do that for a couple of minutes in the morning and the evening, their lives would probably be a lot different. Maybe. Then again, their habits could be so strong that it won't make much difference. However, as individuals, we just get to live in alignment with our heartfelt values. And at some point in our life, hopefully early on, we start to create those heartfelt values so that we have something to true up to when we're looking to get verification and accountability from others. Like, am I doing it myself first? Good. Now let me hold them to it so that we're in agreement that this is where we want life to go.
Yeah, I think that's like the critical thing is holding others accountable. Now, protesting in the streets is one method to bring awareness to things that are critical issues. But ultimately, you can only stay on the streets for a certain number of days or a certain amount of time, and then you run out of money and energy and motivation to keep on. So it's not a permanent solution. The actual permanent solutions are in us transitioning and literally by empowering ourselves to live sustainably on the land. We have indirectly, without confrontation, disempowered those that are empowered because now they don't control us. So ultimately, it is in empowering ourselves and our communities and our tribes and decentralizing that and not consuming what they produce, that we have literally changed the direction of the energy back into alignment with Mother Nature and away from alignment with their destructive flow. So yes, protesting is important, but ultimately, if we had all of those people with such passion and power all moving out into sustainable eco-villages and creating them and growing them, we would be, I don't know which is more important at the moment. So it's really, it's like you have to make those choices yourself, ultimately. Alex, any comments?
Not today.
Not today? You don't have a comment? Okay.
No. Like I say, I fully agree and everything. I just thought I don't have anything further to add to that.
Oh, okay. That's all good. Anyone else who wants to talk? Kurt?
Yeah, I have one last comment that will help us
Yeah.
finish out the day that we have or live through the day.
That's the big issue, hey?
Go in peace and love today, folks.
Yes, and anyone else who's ever watching, go in peace and love every day.
Wonderful. So that's the perfect way to end the meeting. We've just reached the hour. So if anyone wants to stay and say something else, that's fine, but we're going to end the meeting now.